Welcome to The Explainer. So, if your weekend felt like a complete whirlwind of breaking news, severe weather alerts, and random sudden celebrations, well, you're certainly not alone. Between packed airports, high stakes international diplomacy, and these sweltering summer temperatures, there's just a lot to catch up on. My goal today is to take that pretty chaotic news cycle and distill it down into clear, structured takeaways for you. We're going to map out exactly what happened, look at the actual data behind the headlines, and hopefully help you understand what this all means for the week ahead. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our rundown for today. We've got weather and travel chaos, high-stakes peace talks, 3 ongoing investigations, surviving the extreme heat, and finally, a championship celebration. Starting with Section 1, Weather and Travel Chaos, navigating the weekend's storms and surges. So this weekend saw a really massive collision of holiday travel. You had Juneteenth combining with Father's Day, right as some intense, severe weather rolled across the U.S. 3 million, that is the staggering number of people the TSA expected to screen in a single day over the weekend. To put that into perspective for you, officials were seeing crowds at airports like Newark that literally rival Thanksgiving levels. Millions more were hitting the roads, creating heavy, heavy congestion. But the real complication for all these travelers is what's happening up in the sky. The meteorology data paints a highly disruptive picture right now. Across the plains and the Midwest, we're looking at a level 2 out of 5 threat for damaging winds, hail the size of tennis balls, and isolated tornadoes. But what you really need to watch out for is this level 3 out of 4 threat for flash flooding. Meteorologists are tracking what they actually call training storms. Basically, this means consecutive lines of storms are hitting the exact same areas multiple times in a row, which is turning roads into riverways and making travel incredibly dangerous. And, that travel pressure is being felt everywhere, including up in the control towers. Listen to this real quote from air traffic control at Boston Logan International Airport. American 3161, where you going? You cleared for takeoff. In a pretty terrifying near miss, a controller put 2 planes on a potential collision course. A Delta flight actually had to completely abort its landing and execute a go-around maneuver just to avoid an American Airlines jet that was departing from an intersecting runway. Thankfully, both planes landed safely, and the FAA is currently investigating the whole thing. Shifting gears now from domestic travel to global geopolitics, we're moving to Section 2, high-stakes peace talks. Overnight, Vice President Vance arrived in Switzerland for the very first high-level direct talks between the U.S. and Iran. He's joining U.S. Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to focus on 2 massive hurdles. First, they're addressing the major sticking point of what exactly happens to Iran's stockpile of enriched nuclear material. And second, they're working on securing a ceasefire in Lebanon. Keep in mind, this all comes amid some intense recent fighting between Israel and Hezbollah, where at least 28 people have been killed in Lebanon and at least 1 Israeli soldier has died. Both sides are currently accusing the other of firing first. Now, a really stark contrast has emerged regarding the vital Strait of Hormuz. Iran is claiming they've completely shut the strait down, citing what they call blatant breaches of the ceasefire agreement by the United States. However, the United States categorically denies this. They claim the strait is fully open, pointing out that 55 merchant ships carrying roughly 17 million barrels of oil safely passed through on Saturday alone. So, what does this all mean? And what happens if these peace talks fail? Well, the stakes absolutely could not be higher. If the signed 60-day deal that currently allows free passage falls apart, President Trump has declared the U.S. will not tolerate any tolls on ships unless they're imposed by the U.S. itself. Experts are warning that if this highly tenuous status quo breaks down and conflict resumes, the economic fallout could potentially trigger a global depression. Moving on to Section 3, 3 ongoing investigations. Unresolved incidents requiring a closer look. We've got 3 very different but highly concerning incidents from the weekend that local and federal authorities are actively trying to piece together right now. The first investigation involves a deeply tragic police shooting in Los Angeles. To fully understand the context here, we first need to look at the LAPD's standard use of force policy for hostile dog encounters. Before ever firing a weapon, officers are trained on alternative tactics they can use, which flow from voice commands to chemical spray and finally to kicking. The incident itself started with a huge misunderstanding. A neighbor called 911 requesting a wellness check after hearing someone screaming. Well, it turns out those screams were literally just a woman celebrating the Knicks winning an NBA championship game. But when LAPD officers knocked on her door, the homeowner's 107-pound dog, Jameson, slipped past her. The LAPD alleges the dog charged at the officer, who then fired 4 fatal shots. The family's attorney has called the whole incident an escalation and recklessness, while the LAPD has promised a full, transparent investigation. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive gap in safety statistics for our second investigation. Down in Katy, Texas, a blue Tesla slammed through a brick home at high speeds, tragically killing a 76-year-old grandmother who was inside. The 44-year-old driver, who was actually not intoxicated, told deputies he was using the car's automated driving system. Now, Tesla's own safety reports claim their self-driving system results in roughly one crash for every 5 to 7 million miles. That is far, far better than the human average of one crash every 660,000 miles. Yet, despite those numbers, safety regulators are currently investigating some 3 million Teslas over this exact same software. The third ongoing investigation takes us over to the Dominican Republic. 1,700. That's the staggering number of people, including over 170 children, who had to be urgently evacuated from the Viva Wyndham Dominicus Resort in Bayahib. An absolutely massive fire swept through the property, requiring 15 separate fire crews just to get it under control. Tragically, a 46-year-old Italian mother of two lost her life in the blaze, and a full investigation into what caused the fire is currently underway. All right, Section 4. Surviving extreme summer heat. Actionable medical advice for rising temperatures. Heat-related deaths in the U.S. have literally more than doubled since the 1990s. And just recently, 3 hikers tragically died at the Grand Canyon from suspected heat-related illnesses. So, to stay safe, we have to look at the hard medical facts. According to Dr. Darian Sutton, the moment the temperature crosses 90 degrees with high humidity, an immense strain is put right on your kidneys and your heart. The vulnerable groups are exactly who you might expect: folks over 65, kids under 5, pregnant women, and anyone with a chronic illness. But here's what a lot of people just don't know. Common medications actually physically alter your body's ability to adjust to the heat. If you're taking antihistamines, antidepressants, or diuretics, your risk of a serious heat complication goes up significantly. 2 to 3 liters. That is the exact number of fluids adults need daily. And let's be honest, the vast majority of us are falling way short of that. But the key medical advice here isn't to just chug it all at once at the end of the day. You really need to keep a water bottle nearby and slowly hydrate throughout the entire day. Furthermore, pay close attention to your local weather app. The specific threshold you're looking for is a UV index greater than 6. The second it crosses that line, your skin risk increases exponentially, and you absolutely must increase your sun protection. And of course, please remember to check on your elderly neighbors who might be trapped in homes without adequate air conditioning. Finally, Section 5, a championship celebration, painting the town red and black. Okay, after a weekend filled with some really heavy news, intense weather, and stark safety warnings, we are wrapping things up with a much-needed palate cleanser. 150,000 fans packed right into the streets of downtown Raleigh, transforming the entire city into an absolute sea of red and black. The Carolina Hurricanes brought the Stanley Cup home over the weekend, and players hoisted that massive trophy high along the parade route. It was a huge rally, a long-awaited championship party for all the Caniacs out there, and just a fantastic high note to end the week on. And that brings us to the end of our rundown. We've covered a whole lot of ground today, right? From crowded airports and dangerous storms to delicate international diplomacy and life-saving heat advice. But hey, information is only as good as what you actually do with it. So with travel surging, temperatures rising, and global stakes higher than ever, how will you use these facts to navigate your week ahead? Stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next explainer.